Okay, few key things before you actually get to the point where you're putting the seeds into the container. You want to start with a pretty decent soil mix. So I'm going to bring my soil over here. So there's a few different kinds of soils you can get. Look for something that's in container garden and or even better, seed starting mix. Seed starting mix is lighter. It lets the seed really get established and move around. You can do that, but just getting some indoor potting soil or container growing soil, that's kind of what you want to look for. When you see the container part in the description of the soil, it means they've added extra amenders in there to make sure that the plants have enough space and ingredients, food, nutrients, so that the seed can really develop and be established in a container versus a bigger garden space. Okay, so what I've done here is I've mixed my container soil and a little bit of compost. Compost is really important if you can get your hands on some, or some kind of liquid organic fertilizer should go in here. I've also put some warm water in it. It's better to water the soil and get it really saturated first than to put dry soil into a container, the seed, and then water. You're kind of washing it away. This is kind of skipping a step. And the way that you can test to see if you've got enough moisture in there is to clump the soil together. A little water's coming out, but it's staying together in a clump. All right, so let's do these ones first. So I'm going to fill, the whole tray with some soil. Easy peasy. And a few worms are in here, which they'll be okay. I'm not going to pack down the soil, so if you're doing this with your kids at home, it's not making sandcastles, which is what kids like to do. They like to get their hands in there and squeeze, which is fine. But once they get the soil into the container, they need to keep it loosely packed. Okay, so that's the peas. This is for my peas, and I'm going to start with the peas that are going to need the longest, which are the sweet peas. And one of the little tips and tricks is that you can soak peas, because they're sweet peas in particular, they've got a really hard shell. If you soak them in water first for a few weeks before planting, that can activate the germination. The other thing you can do is scratch them a bit with some sandpaper on the outside of them. So if you see the peas here, they're pretty hard and small, and they're once they've been hydrated, they will crack open a bit and start to grow. I'm skipping all that. I'm putting them directly in just really moist soil and hoping for the best. So I'm making sure, I'm going to put all of the peas on top of the soil first, just to show you. You want to make sure that you're putting it into the center. Some kids, when they're doing this, tend to put it on the edge. And you would think that that would be an obvious step, but it's amazing how some people just put the seeds anywhere and everywhere. Try to aim for the middle. Okay, got a few more. It's better to go more than less. You don't know how many seeds are going to actually sprout. So this way you're giving yourself lots of opportunities. So here, I've only just put the seeds on top like this. Now I'm going to press them down just with my finger. I'm not using any fancy tools here. You want to kind of aim for them to kind of go into the middle of the seed pod here. But check the package about soil depth. So on this one, it's going to say 5 centimeters depth. So there's a little diagram, and I'm just estimating that that's about the middle of the container. So I'm just pressing that down and making sure it's covered. Needs to be really well moist soil for the seeds to sprout, especially peas. So that's the peas. And basically I'm going to be doing the same with the parsley peas, but I'm going to do things a little differently with the salad. So I'm just going to get all these in here. Whoops, that one fell down to the side. We'll see what happens there. I'll just tuck it down and move it to the center. Okay, and covered up. There we go. Now, really good idea to label, of course, and put down into a warm spot. So here's the tip. When you're starting seeds, when you're wanting them to germinate, the key thing is moisture, warmth, moisture and warmth, really. So warm water or warm soil. And a good place to put this tray after I'm done isn't necessarily by the window yet. By the window in March, it's still a bit cool. The best place in your house to put a tray of seeds that you're trying to germinate, if you don't have any heating mats, is actually on top of your fridge, of all places. The fridge is always on, and at the very back of the fridge, if you can, I mean, some fridges are stuck right into the wall, but the back of the fridge has a device that keeps the fridge going and gives off some heat. The heat rises and goes over the top of where your seeds are. So putting this whole thing on this tray, and then on top of my fridge, and I might even put an extra layer of warmth protection, which would be some saran wrap, a little mini greenhouse. On top of the fridge is the best place for this afterwards. I'm going to wait a good 2 weeks and just forget about it. Just kind of let them hang out and get moist and warm, and maybe they'll germinate. I'm not going to see any sprouts, I don't think, but there's a possibility. So that's the other key ingredient. Before you're putting a seed into any soil, you need to put some intention into it. You need to believe that it's going to grow. Okay, otherwise this whole process is a waste. So you only need the size of a kale seed or a mustard seed of faith that something's going to grow. So again, warm, wet soil, 1 seed per hole, per pod here. I'm going to cover it in saran, and I'm going to put it on top of the fridge for warmth until I start seeing some sprouts. When I see some sprouts, then I'm going to move it into the window and take the saran wrap off. I don't want to see any mold. So leaves equal light. Germinating seeds, just warmth. Okay? And next one will be the salad greens.